The stars looked different through the bridge windows of the UHS Defiance. Captain Jake Morrison had seen many systems during his 20 years in space, but this one felt wrong. Everything was too quiet, too organized. The planets moved in perfect circles around their sun, and the asteroid belt formed neat lines like someone had arranged them by hand. "Captain, we're getting those strange readings again," said Lisa Chang from her science station. She had been studying the data for 3 days now, and her voice carried worry. "The energy patterns don't match anything natural. It's like the whole system has been changed." Jake nodded and walked closer to her station. Lisa was the best scientist in the human fleet, and if she was concerned, he needed to listen. The Defiance was humanity's most advanced ship, built in secret over the past 5 years. Earth's leaders had sent them here to investigate reports from the outer colonies, reports that made no sense. "Show me what you found," Jake said. Lisa pulled up a holographic display between them. The image showed 12 massive ships, each one the size of a small moon. They were beautiful and terrible at the same time, made of what looked like living crystal that pulsed with inner light. These ships belonged to the beings who called themselves the Celestial Dominion. "The colonists say these beings are gods," Lisa explained. "They claim they created all life in the galaxy millions of years ago. Every species we've met believes this story. The aliens worship them and give them tribute." Jake frowned. He had read the reports from human colonies that had encountered the Dominion. The beings demanded worship and threatened destruction if they didn't get it. Most human settlements had given in rather than fight. They were too far from Earth to get help, and the Dominion's power seemed unlimited. "What do you think?" Jake asked. "I think they're lying," Lisa said quietly. "Look at these biological scans from the last encounter." The display changed to show data from a meeting between human diplomats and one of the Dominion beings. The creature had appeared as a tall figure made of pure light, speaking with a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It called itself Zephyrian, the Eternal, and claimed to have existed since the birth of the universe. "The energy signature is wrong," Lisa continued. "Real gods wouldn't leave biological traces, but this thing does. It has DNA-like structures, even if they're incredibly complex. It evolved from something else, just like every other species we've found." Jake studied the data. Lisa was right. The being showed signs of advanced evolution, not divine creation. There were cellular structures, genetic patterns, and metabolic processes. Very advanced ones, but still natural. "There's more," Lisa said. She brought up communication intercepts that their spy satellites had collected. "Listen to this." A voice played from the speakers, but it wasn't the booming, godlike tone the Dominion used when speaking to other species. This was different. Nervous. Almost afraid. "The humans are asking too many questions. Their scientists are more advanced than we expected. We need to increase pressure on their colonies before they discover the truth." Jake felt cold. "They're afraid of us?" "It gets better," Lisa said with a small smile. "I've been analyzing their ship designs. They look magical, but they're not. Everything they do follows the laws of physics, just very advanced physics. Their ships phase through matter using quantum field manipulation. Their weapons alter reality by controlling fundamental forces. It's incredible technology, but it's still technology." Roy Phillips, the chief engineer, had been listening from his station. He was a big man with rough hands who could fix anything that broke. "So you're saying these gods are just really smart aliens with good tech?" "That's exactly what I'm saying," Lisa replied. "And I think I know why they work so hard to maintain the illusion. Control. If every species in the galaxy believes you're divine, they'll obey without question. They'll give you their resources, their loyalty, everything. It's the perfect scam." Jake walked to the main view screen and stared out at the stars. Humanity had only achieved faster than light travel 50 years ago. They were still new to the galaxy, still learning about the other species out there. When they first met the Dominion, Earth's leaders had been terrified. These beings could destroy planets with a thought, could make stars go dark, could reach into someone's mind from across space. But what if it was all a trick? "Captain," said Sam Carter from the communication station. He was young but skilled, and his voice was excited. I've been working on those communication frequencies Lisa found. I think I can break into their network. Do it, Jake ordered. Sam's fingers flew over his controls. The main screen flickered, and then filled with images that made everyone on. The bridge go silent. They were seeing inside a Dominion ship, and it wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of divine beings floating in cosmic energy, they saw creatures that looked almost normal. They were tall and thin with pale blue skin and large eyes, but they were clearly biological. They wore technology that enhanced their abilities, devices that let them project illusions and manipulate energy. Most shocking of all, there were thousands of them working together. They're using some kind of shared consciousness, Lisa whispered. All those beings we thought were separate gods, they're really just parts of a larger group mind. That's how they maintain the illusion of being 12 eternal beings when they're actually an entire species. Jake made his decision. Sam, record everything. Roy, start preparing our special modifications. Lisa, I want you to analyze every piece of data we can get. What are you planning, Captain? Roy asked. Jake turned to face his crew. These were good people who had volunteered for what might be a suicide mission. Earth's leaders had sent the Defiance to gather information, but Jake knew they might need to do more than just watch. We're going to expose the truth, he said. The galaxy has been living under a lie for centuries. Every species thinks they're slaves to gods, but they're really just being controlled by clever aliens. If we can prove that, everything changes. Lisa looked worried. Captain, if we're wrong about this, then we'll be the first humans to meet real gods, Jake finished. But if we're right, we might be able to free the entire galaxy from the biggest lie in history. The Defiance continued toward the heart of the Dominion's territory, carrying secrets that could change everything. Behind them, human colonies waited for word. Ahead of them, false gods prepared their deceptions. And, in between, one ship carried the hope that truth could triumph over even the most powerful lies. The real test was about to begin. The Dominion fleet appeared without warning around the Defiance like predators surrounding prey. Jake Morrison watched as 3 massive crystalline ships materialized from what seemed like empty space, their surfaces glowing with patterns that hurt to look at directly. Each vessel was enormous, easily 10 times the size of his ship, and they moved with impossible grace through the void. Red alert, Jake called out. Though his crew was already at battle stations, they had been expecting this confrontation for days as they approached the sacred world of Nexus Prime. The Dominion didn't allow unauthorized ships near their holy sites, and the Defiance was definitely unauthorized. The bridge lights dimmed, as power was redirected to shields and weapons. Around Jake, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. They had trained for this moment, but training was different from facing beings who claimed to be gods. Incoming transmission, Sam Carter announced from his communication station. His voice was steady, but Jake could see sweat on the young man's forehead. Put it through, Jake ordered. The main screen filled with swirling energy that gradually formed into a humanoid shape made of pure light. The figure was tall and imposing, with features that seemed to shift and change like living flame. When it spoke, the voice seemed to come from inside everyone's head rather than through the speakers. Mortals, the being said, and the word carried weight that made the ship's hull vibrate. You dare approach the throne world of your creators without permission? I am Zephyrian the Eternal, first among the divine, maker of stars and life itself. Explain your presence before I erase your pathetic species from existence. Jake stood and faced the screen. He had practiced this moment in his mind dozens of times, but actually confronting a supposed god was different than he had imagined. Still, he kept his voice calm and steady. We're explorers from Earth, he said. We came here seeking knowledge and truth. The figure on the screen seemed to grow larger and brighter. Truth? The only truth you need to know is that you exist at our pleasure. Your species will submit to our will or face complete destruction. We have eliminated entire civilizations for less than this insult. Roy now, Jake said quietly. Chief Engineer Roy Phillips had been waiting for this moment. His fingers moved across his control panel, activating systems that had been built in secret over the past 5 years. The Defiance carried technology that no other human ship possessed, devices that Earth's best scientists had developed specifically for this mission. Quantum sensors active, Roy reported, beginning deep scan of the target vessels. On the screen, Zephyrian seemed unaware of what was happening. The being continued its threats, speaking of divine wrath and cosmic justice, but in the science section of the bridge, Lisa Chang was watching readings that told a very different story. "Got them," she whispered, then louder. "Captain, the scans are working. I'm reading massive power sources inside those ships, but they're not divine energy. They're fusion reactors, hundreds of them, and there are life signs, thousands of biological entities aboard each vessel." Jake felt his heart racing. They had been right. The gods were not gods at all. More than that, Lisa continued, her excitement growing. The energy patterns creating that light being on our screen are coming from projection devices located throughout their fleet. It's an elaborate hologram controlled by organic brains working in coordination. Sam Carter had been busy at his station, using the scanning data to break into the Dominion's communication networks. His skills as a hacker had been useful many times before, but never for anything this important. "Captain," Sam called out, "I'm intercepting their internal communications. They're not using divine telepathy. It's just advanced radio technology. And they're talking to each other in what sounds like panic." "Put it through the translators," Jake ordered. A new voice filled the bridge, speaking in urgent, fearful tones. "The human ship has scanning technology we've never encountered. They're seeing through the neural projections. If they broadcast what they're learning, the entire deception could collapse." Another voice responded, "Impossible. Our quantum veils have hidden our true nature for 8 centuries. No species has ever penetrated them. The readings don't lie. These humans are more advanced than we thought. We need to destroy them immediately, before they can share this information." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him with expressions of amazement and fear. They had just heard the truth. The beings who had terrorized the galaxy for centuries were frauds. "Sam," Jake said, "broadcast everything we've learned to every human colony in range. Make sure they understand what we've discovered." "Already. Working on it, Captain," Sam replied, his fingers flying over his controls. On the main screen, the image of Zephyrian began to flicker and distort. The perfect divine figure was breaking apart, revealing glimpses of the technology creating it. Through the static, Jake could see parts of the real aliens, pale, thin creatures with large eyes and expressions of desperate fear. "You will not," the false god began, but its voice was cutting in and out like a bad radio signal. "Your illusion is broken," Jake said, addressing not just the image on the screen but the thousands of aliens hiding behind it. "We know what you really are. You're not gods. You're just another species using advanced technology to control others through fear and deception." The crystalline ships around the Defiance began to glow brighter, and Jake could feel energy building in their weapon systems. The aliens were preparing to attack, their carefully maintained facade crumbling. "Captain," Roy reported, "they're charging weapons. Those energy signatures are off the charts." "Lisa, what are we looking at?" Jake asked. Lisa studied her readings quickly. "Plasma cannons, gravity manipulators, and something that looks like it can disrupt matter at the molecular level. But Captain, now that we know how their technology really works, I think we can defend against it." "How?" "Their weapons rely on the same quantum field manipulation they use for their disguises. If we can disrupt those fields, their weapons should lose effectiveness. Roy, can you modify our shield generators?" Roy was already working. "Give me 2 minutes," he said. "We might not have 2 minutes," Sam warned. "They're moving into attack formation." Jake made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Instead of running or trying to negotiate, he chose to fight. Not because he wanted war, but because the truth was more important than safety. "All hands, prepare for battle," he announced over the ship's intercom. "Today we're not just fighting for our lives. We're fighting to free every species in the galaxy from centuries of lies." The false gods had ruled through deception and fear for too long. Now they faced something they had never encountered before, a species that refused to kneel to anyone, real gods or fake ones. The battle for truth was about to begin. Deep inside the largest Dominion vessel, Arch-manipulator Velthar felt something he had not experienced in over 3 centuries. Pure terror. The being who had spent 800 years playing the role of Zephyrian the Eternal stood in the central command chamber, watching displays that showed their greatest secret being exposed to the galaxy. "How is this possible?" he demanded of the other manipulators gathered around him. The chamber was filled with pale, thin aliens connected to massive machines that amplified their mental abilities. These devices allowed them to project the illusion of divine beings across space, maintaining the deception that had made them rulers of countless worlds. "The human ship carries scanning technology we have never encountered," reported manipulator Cassandra, who had been monitoring the situation. "Their sensors penetrate our quantum veils as if they were made of simple glass. Everything we have hidden for centuries is now visible to them." Veltar's large eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display. The human vessel was tiny compared to their ships, barely worth noticing under normal circumstances. But these were not normal circumstances. The humans had done something that should have been impossible. They had seen through the greatest deception in galactic history. "What is their transmission range?" Velthar asked. "Unknown, but preliminary estimates suggest they can reach at least 40 human colonies from their current position," another manipulator replied. "If they broadcast what they have learned, every species in the galaxy will know we are not gods," Velthar finished. The thought made his stomach turn. For 8 centuries, the Dominion had controlled 47 different species through carefully orchestrated lies. They had convinced entire civilizations that they were divine beings who had created all life, and that disobedience meant eternal punishment. The truth was very different. The Dominion was simply an advanced species that had discovered how to extend their lifespans and link their consciousness together through technology. They had used these abilities to create the illusion of immortal gods, when in reality they were just very old aliens with sophisticated equipment. "Arch-manipulator," called out Technician Morgeth from his station. "The humans are already broadcasting their discoveries. We're detecting transmissions heading toward multiple human colonies." Velthar slammed his fist on the control panel, a very ungodlike display of emotion that would have shocked any of their worshippers. "How long before other species start asking questions?" "The Zentari have already begun deep scans of our ships near their homeworld," Cassandra reported. "The Helvons are requesting an audience to discuss recent revelations. The Cortani Federation has stopped all tribute shipments pending further investigation." The careful order that had taken centuries to build was crumbling in real time. Velthar could see it happening on the displays around him. Species that had worshipped the Dominion without question were suddenly demanding proof of their divinity. Ships that had never dared to scan Dominion vessels were now pointing every sensor they had at them. "We have only one option," Velthar announced to the assembled manipulators. "Total destruction. The humans and everyone who has learned their secret must be eliminated completely. No survivors, no evidence, no trace that any of this ever happened." "Arch-manipulator," Morgeth said hesitantly. "That would require destroying multiple star systems. The energy expenditure would be enormous, and other species would certainly notice. Then we tell them it was divine judgment for questioning." "The gods," Velthar replied coldly. "Fear has always been our greatest weapon. If we make the consequences of rebellion terrible enough, the other species will fall back in line." Around the chamber, the other manipulators began working frantically to coordinate their response. Messages went out to every Dominion ship in the galaxy, ordering them to prepare for what they called the Great Cleansing. Every human colony would be destroyed, along with any alien worlds that had started asking uncomfortable questions. "How long to assemble the full fleet?" Velthar asked. 18 hours to gather our forces at Nexus Prime," Cassandra replied. "We can have over 200 ships ready for the assault." "Make it 12 hours, Velthar ordered. "Every moment we delay gives the humans more time to spread their poison. And contact the outer fleet. Tell them to begin eliminating human colonies immediately. We cannot allow this information to spread further." As his subordinates rushed to carry out his orders, Velthar studied the image of the small human ship on his display. The Defiance looked so insignificant compared to their massive vessels, yet it had accomplished what no other species had managed in 8 centuries. It had exposed the truth. "Sir," Technician Morgoth called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. They're addressing us directly." "Put it through," Velthar ordered. The main display showed the bridge of the human ship. A man in uniform stood facing the camera, Captain Jake Morrison, according to their intelligence. "Files." He looked calm and determined, not at all like someone facing imminent death. "I know you can hear this," Morrison said. "I know you're not gods, and I know you're afraid. For centuries, you've controlled the galaxy through lies and fear. You've made entire species bow down to worship beings who are no more divine than they are." Velthar felt rage building inside him. How dare this primitive alien speak to him with such disrespect? Morrison continued, "But your time is over. The truth is spreading across the galaxy faster than you can stop it. Species that have been your slaves for generations are learning that their gods are just aliens with good technology. You can destroy our ship, but you can't destroy the idea we've planted." "We shall see about that," Velthar muttered. "There's still a chance to end this peacefully," Morrison said. "Stop pretending to be gods, reveal your true nature to the galaxy, and work with other species as equals. The knowledge you've gathered over centuries could benefit everyone if you shared it honestly instead of using it for control." The transmission ended, and the bridge fell silent. Several of the younger manipulators looked uncertain, as if they were actually considering the human's proposal. But Velthar had not maintained power for 8 centuries by showing mercy to those who threatened him. "Begin the assault," he ordered. "I want that ship destroyed and every trace of this rebellion eliminated. The galaxy will learn that questioning the gods brings only death." "Arch-manipulator," Cassandra said quietly, "what if the human is right? What if we cannot contain this? What if the other species unite against us once they know the truth?" Velthar turned to face her, his expression cold and determined. "Then we will remind them why they feared us in the first place. We may not be gods, but we have the power of gods. That has always been enough. The greatest deception in galactic history was collapsing, but its architects were not ready to surrender. If they could not rule through worship, they would rule through terror. The galaxy was about to learn just how far fallen gods would go to maintain their power. The space around Nexus Prime filled with light as the Dominion fleet opened fire. 200 crystalline ships unleashed weapons that had conquered entire star systems, beams of energy that could crack planets and gravity waves that twisted space itself. The assault was so intense that nearby asteroids simply vanished, turned to atomic dust by forces that bent the laws of physics. At the center of this cosmic storm, the UHS Defiance should have been destroyed in the first second of battle. The small human ship faced weapons that no other species had ever survived, devices that the Dominion had used to maintain their godlike reputation for centuries. But the Defiance did not die. Adaptive shields holding at 70%. Roy Phillips reported from his engineering station, his voice calm despite the incredible forces hammering their ship. "The quantum disruption fields are working better than we hoped." Jake Morrison gripped his command chair as the ship shook under the assault. Through the bridge windows, he could see the enemy fleet surrounding them, their crystalline hulls glowing with deadly energy. But something was wrong with the attack. The weapons that should have instantly destroyed them were having trouble finding their target. "How are we still alive?" Sam Carter asked from his communications station. "Because Amy figured out their secret," Jake replied, looking toward the science section where Dr. Amy Rodriguez was working frantically at her controls. Amy Rodriguez had been the chief scientist on Earth when the Defiance was built, and she had spent 5 years studying every piece of Dominion technology they could obtain. While other scientists had been amazed by the aliens' seemingly magical abilities, Amy had looked deeper, searching for the natural laws that made their technology possible. "Their weapons work by manipulating quantum fields," Amy explained as she rerouted power through the ship's experimental systems. "They can phase matter in and out of normal space, control gravity, even alter the structure of atoms. But every one of these effects requires a stable quantum field to function." And our disruption fields break that stability, Roy added with a grin. The Defiance had been equipped with devices that Earth scientists called quantum scramblers. These systems could create areas of space where quantum effects became unpredictable, making advanced Dominion technology unreliable. It was humanity's first real defense against beings who had seemed unstoppable. Ben, take us into the middle of their formation, Jake ordered. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Hayes, the ship's tactical officer, looked at his captain with surprise. Sir, that's suicide. They'll surround us completely. That's exactly what I want, Jake replied. Amy, are you ready? Amy's hands moved across her controls with practiced precision. Quantum disruptor at maximum power. If this works, their entire fleet will lose cohesion simultaneously. And if it doesn't work? Ben asked. Then we die very quickly, Jake answered, honestly. But at least the galaxy will know the truth about their gods. The Defiance dove straight into the heart of the enemy formation, its hull crackling with energy as it absorbed and redirected weapons fire. The ship's experimental armor was designed to store energy rather than simply deflect it, building up power that could be released all at once. Around them, the massive Dominion vessels began to flicker and fade as their holographic projections started failing. What had appeared to be divine ships made of living crystal were revealed to be large but conventional spacecraft, their hulls gleaming metal and ceramic rather than magical materials. Their illusions are breaking down, Lisa Chang reported from her science station. The quantum fields maintaining their disguises are destabilizing. On the main screen, the enemy ships were changing before their eyes. Instead of the beautiful, impossible vessels that had terrorized the galaxy, they now looked like what they really were, advanced but ultimately normal spacecraft built by an intelligent species. They were still dangerous, still heavily armed, but no longer godlike. Now, Jake shouted. Amy triggered the quantum disruptor at full power. A wave of distorted space-time spread out from the Defiance like ripples in a pond, washing over the entire Dominion fleet. Where the wave passed, reality itself seemed to shiver and bend. The effects were immediate and dramatic. Dominion ships that had been phasing in and out of normal space suddenly became solid and vulnerable. Weapons that had been bending space to strike targets were now firing in straight lines like conventional energy beams. Most importantly, the network of quantum fields that linked all the ships together and allowed them to coordinate as a single entity suddenly collapsed. Direct hit on the command ship, Ben reported with satisfaction. Their flagship is losing power. Through the chaos of battle, Jake could see the largest Dominion vessel, the one that had been projecting the image of Zephyrian the Eternal. Its crystalline hull was flickering between solid matter and energy, the illusion failing as its quantum projectors overloaded. They're trying to retreat, Sam called out. Multiple ships are attempting to enter hyperspace. Not all of them, Amy warned. Some of their vessels are still functional and they're very angry. A group of Dominion ships had managed to maintain partial power and were regrouping for another attack. These vessels look different now, sleeker and more practical, their true design revealed without the holographic enhancements. They were still formidable opponents, but they no longer seemed supernatural. Kate, evasive maneuvers, Jake ordered. Major, Kate Sullivan, the ship's pilot, pushed the Defiance through impossible turns and rolls, using the ship's quantum drives to phase partially out of normal space-time. The human vessel moved like nothing the Dominion had ever seen, appearing and disappearing as it struck at their command nodes with surgical precision. How are we doing this? Kate asked as she guided the ship through a barrage of enemy fire. We're just one ship against hundreds. Because we're not trying to match their power, Jake explained. We're using their own technology against them. Every quantum field they generate gives us something to disrupt. The battle raged for 3 hours, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. One by one, the Dominion ships either retreated or were disabled, their crews finally revealed as mortal beings who could be defeated. The quantum disruptor had stripped away their technological advantages, leaving them to fight as equals rather than gods. When the last enemy vessel limped away into hyperspace, the space around Nexus Prime was filled with debris and the wreckage of dreams. The beings who had called themselves gods for 8 centuries had been revealed as frauds, their greatest fleet scattered by a single human ship. "Status report," Jake called out. "Hull damage is minimal," Roy reported. "We lost some armor plating, but all main systems are operational. Communications are flooded with incoming messages," Sam added. "Species all across the galaxy are asking what happened here. The whole battle was broadcast on subspace frequencies." Jake nodded with satisfaction. The fight had been about more than just destroying enemy ships. It had been about proving to the galaxy that their gods could bleed. "Amy, can you confirm that we've broken their deception completely?" Amy studied her readings carefully before answering. "The quantum fields that maintained their illusions have collapsed across their entire fleet. Every species with decent sensors will now be able to see them for what they really are." The age of false gods was ending, but Jake knew the real work was just beginning. The galaxy had been ruled by lies for centuries, and building something better would take time and effort from every free species, but at least now they had a chance. The explosion of the last Dominion command ship lit up the space around Nexus Prime like a dying star. As the light faded, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance and watched 8 centuries of tyranny crumble in real time. Across the galaxy, species that had lived in fear and worship for generations were seeing their gods revealed as mortals for the first time. "Captain," Sam Carter called from his communication station, "we're receiving transmissions from everywhere. The Zentari Republic is demanding answers from their local Dominion overseer. The Helvans have surrounded the god ship in their system and are ordering it to surrender. Even the Cortani are asking questions." Jake nodded with satisfaction. The truth was spreading faster than the Dominion could contain it. Every species with decent sensors was now pointing them at their supposed gods and discovering the same thing humanity had found: advanced aliens using technology to maintain an elaborate deception. "Any word from the surviving Dominion ships?" Jake asked. 3 vessels escaped the battle, Lisa Chang reported from her science station. "But they're not running for the outer rim like we expected. They're heading toward populated systems." Jake felt a chill of worry. Desperate beings with advanced weapons could cause tremendous damage, even if they were no longer seen as gods. "Are they planning attacks?" "I don't think so," Lisa replied, studying her readings. "The energy signatures suggest they're preparing for a broadcast of some kind." The main screen flickered to life, showing the image of a being Jake recognized as the creature who had called itself Zephyrian the Eternal. But there were no more light effects or divine aura. Instead, they saw Velthar as he really was, a pale, thin alien with large dark eyes, looking older and more tired than any immortal god should appear. "People of the galaxy," Velthar began, his voice now coming through normal speakers instead of seeming to echo from everywhere at once. "What you have witnessed today is the end of an age. For 800 of your years we have maintained a necessary deception to prevent chaos and ensure order." Jake frowned. Even in defeat, the alien was trying to justify centuries of tyranny. "We are not gods," Velthar continued, "but we are ancient and wise beyond your understanding. Our species achieved advanced technology when yours were still primitive animals. We have guided your development, prevented wars, maintained peace. Without our guidance, the galaxy will fall into chaos and destruction." "He's still trying to control them," Amy Rodriguez observed with disgust. Even after everything that's happened, the alien leader's image spread to every screen in the galaxy as he delivered his final message. "You have chosen to reject divine rule for the uncertainty of freedom. Remember this moment when your species destroy each other in the wars to come. Remember that you chose chaos over the peace we provided." The transmission ended, and Jake felt the weight of what they had accomplished. They had not just defeated a fleet, they had torn down the foundation that an entire galactic civilization had been built on. The question now was what would replace it. "Captain," Sam said, "we're getting priority messages from Earth Command. Admiral Jackson wants a full report immediately." "Tell the Admiral that the mission was successful," Jake replied. "The Dominion's deception has been exposed galaxy-wide. But also tell him we're going to be busy out here for a while." The galaxy is going to need help rebuilding. Over the following weeks, the Defiance became the center of what historians would later call the Great Awakening. Species that had been isolated under Dominion rule began reaching out to each other, sharing technology and knowledge that had been hidden for centuries. The crystalline ships that had seemed so magical were revealed to be sophisticated but comprehensible technology, and within months, several species had begun developing their own versions. Amy Rodriguez led the effort to understand and distribute former Dominion technology. Working with scientists from dozens of different species, she helped establish research stations throughout the galaxy, where the advanced physics behind quantum field manipulation could be studied and improved. Knowledge belongs to everyone, Amy declared during a broadcast to the newly free worlds. For too long, one species has hoarded the secrets of the universe to maintain power over others. That age is over. The transformation was not without challenges. Some species struggled with the concept of freedom after centuries of being told what to do by divine beings. Others tried to establish their own empires using captured Dominion technology. A few worlds even begged for their gods to return, unable to cope with the responsibility of making their own decisions. But most of the galaxy embraced the change. The Zentari Republic formed an alliance with the Helvan Federation to explore new regions of space. The Cortani began sharing their advanced medical knowledge with species that had been denied access to it under Dominion rule. Trade routes opened. Between worlds that had never been allowed to communicate directly, humanity found itself in an unexpected position. As the species that had exposed the Great Deception, humans were welcomed as allies and teachers by many of the newly free civilizations. Earth's technology, while not as advanced as the Dominions, offered something equally valuable: the proof that progress was possible without tyranny. Captain Jake Morrison and the crew of the Defiance spent 2 years traveling the galaxy, helping to establish the new order. They mediated disputes between species, learning to interact as equals, provided protection for worlds threatened by Dominion loyalists, and shared the story of humanity's discovery again and again. The most important thing to remember, Jake told a gathering of representatives from 47 different species, is that no one has the right to rule over others simply because they claim to be superior. Gods who demand worship through fear are not gods at all. They're just bullies with better weapons. The former Dominion species, revealed to be called the Velkari, eventually reached out to request negotiations. Most of their leadership, including Velthar, had died in the chaos following their exposure, killed by their own people who felt betrayed by centuries of lies. The survivors wanted to make peace and contribute their knowledge to the galactic community as equals rather than rulers. "We spent so long pretending to be gods that we forgot how to be people," explained Cassiandra, now the leader of the remaining Velkari. "Perhaps it is time to learn again." Dr. Amy Rodriguez, now head of the Galactic Scientific Council, welcomed them with cautious optimism. "Science advances fastest when different minds work together," she said. "We can accomplish more as partners than we ever could as masters and slaves." The new galactic community was far from perfect. There were still conflicts, misunderstandings, and species that preferred isolation to cooperation. But for the first time in 8 centuries, every world had the choice to determine its own future. As the Defiance finally returned to Earth orbit, Jake Morrison looked out at the stars and reflected on what they had accomplished. They had not just won a battle or exposed a lie. They had proven that courage and curiosity could triumph over fear and deception. "What's next, Captain?" Lisa Chang asked as they prepared to dock with Earth Station. Jake smiled. "Whatever we choose," he replied. "That's the beauty of freedom. The future is ours to make." The age of false gods was over. The age of cooperation, discovery, and honest progress had begun. And throughout the galaxy, species that had once bowed in worship now stood tall as equals, reaching for the stars with hope instead of fear. The greatest lie in galactic history had been replaced by an even greater truth, that no one needed gods when they had each other.